Welcome to the Advancing Your Career Strategies and Best Practices for Advanced Practice Providers Working in Urology webinar, organized by the AUA's APP Membership Committee. My name is Sarah Laughlin, Manager of Member Engagement at the AUA, and I'll be serving as the moderator for the event tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in tonight's webinar. Due to the size of the audience, all participants will be in listen-only mode with video turned off. Throughout the presentations, you are encouraged to use the questions pane to submit a question to the panelists. Questions will be answered during the Q&A session at the end of the program. Unless otherwise stated, content in today's program should be viewed as opinions and perspective from the presenters and not as official positions of the AUA or professional career, legal, or financial advice. Finally, I would like to extend a special thank you to the panelists of this evening's program for their time, talent, and expertise in developing and facilitating tonight's event. Our moderator this evening will be Tricia Zubert. She is a certified nurse practitioner and works at Park Nicollet Health Services at a multidisciplinary sexual medicine and male infertility clinic in Minneapolis. In addition to serving as the chair of the AUA's APP Membership Committee, she also serves as a representative to the AUA's APP Education Committee, the AUA's Young Urologist Committee, and the AUA's Section Secretaries Membership Council. I'll now turn the time over to Tricia.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on this July Wednesday evening. We are so glad that you are here with us and hope that you really learn tonight some maybe clinical pearls or just help you to become more bold and courageous in your practice. Move forward here. So as Sarah said, thanks for the introduction, Sarah. I'm the membership APP committee chair. And what that is, because many of you may not know, is it's a voice that represents the APPs of the AUA. And we work very closely with the APP Education Committee as well. And one thing that I think is really exciting is that our membership has grown 174% in the last 5 years. We're the fastest growing group of the AUA. And I think it's going to continue to do that because one of the conferences I was at, one of the urologists had said that every day 10,000 people turn 65 or older. So we have a growing population that's aging. We're going to have more urologic needs. And also some urologists who are retiring too. So they are going to need us. If you can move forward. So tonight, I'm so excited to introduce you to some amazing people in our field. And hopefully you'll learn something from each one of these individuals. They've had amazing careers and continue to have amazing careers. First, we'll have Lynn Allmond speak. And she has been serving as a nurse practitioner for Augusta University for the past 21 years. She is currently employed with the Department of Surgery Urology, having been employed as a research nurse practitioner for the Family Medicine GYN Oncology Group for 15 years. She is a member of the United Advanced Practice Registered Nurse of Georgia and the American Association of Nurse Practitioners, and serves on the AUA's APP Membership Committee. Next, Dan will be speaking, and Dan is a PA and has his PhD. He's been a PA for 40 years, so a lot of experience there, and he has worked in urology, urgent care, pediatric and adult hematology oncology, and addiction medicine. He has worked in both private practice as well as assistant professor in the Department of Physician Assistant Studies in the College of Allied Health Professionals at the University of South Alabama. He's currently the chair of the AUA's APP Education Committee, and it's always fun to work with him. And then last who will speak will be Ken Mitchell. And Ken Mitchell is a certified physician's assistant with over 25 years of clinical experience. Overall, and over 23 years experiences in the men's health and male sexual dysfunction. Ken actively promotes men's health and has participated in community outreach programs to educate men about sexual health. He co-authored the AUA Consensus Statement of Advanced Practice Provider and is co-editor and contributor to the manual of Men's Health, a practice guideline for APRNs and PAs. This was published in 2018. Manuel, and he is immediate past chair of the AUA's APP membership committee. Again, we are so glad you're here, and I'm going to hand the baton off to Lynn, and she'll go ahead and tell you more.
Hey everybody, can you see me? My name is Lynn Allmond, and I'm a nurse practitioner at Augusta University. Here's a little about who I am. I'm a Midwesterner by birth, having settled in the Carolinas, Augusta, Georgia area in 1997. My work background is predominantly in the ICUs, but I spent a significant amount of time in gynecology, women's health, working on HPV vaccine research. But I've now settled in urology, and I'm very happy there, hoping to finish out my career in that department. So why urology? And my answer to that is, why not? It's certainly how I went into it. It seemed like a good fit, and I said, let me give it a try. And here I am 6 years later, and really very happy in that area. So again, why urology? Of course, everyone knows this. It's a combination of medicine and surgery, which is really kind of awesome because you're getting a little bit of both worlds. I love the fact that I have clinic time, but I get to be involved in procedures, because it's one thing to just see patients every day, but it's certainly more fun for me to be able to do procedures and participate in care in that area. This is a very sensitive area. Like I said, I worked in women's health, and we called it the undershorts theory. Anything in the undershorts area, nobody wants to talk about. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want you to look at it or anything. So you can really make a big impact in patients' lives. I've found that men are very inhibited when they first speak to me, but after we have established a relationship, they're like, well, you're not so bad to talk to after all, which is kind of nice. There are lots of ways to help patients, whether it's through medicines, therapies, procedures, surgeries. And while we don't do those surgeries, we're certainly very active in the care of those patients. We see men and women, which is kind of nice, having come from a GYN background. I'm not afraid of the men. Men, after a while, aren't afraid of me, and it's a nice variety. And interestingly enough, we see a lot of interesting characters. Some of them are great characters, some of them are interesting characters, but really urology is an amazing, funny, sad, great place to work. There are also some subspecialties that you can get into. Things a little slow. So preparing for your job in urology, what do you do? Where do you go? How do you learn? How do you find out things? And that's what happened with me. So I first sought help with SUNA because I was a nurse and a nurse practitioner, but then I got involved in the American Urological Association. They have tons of resources. And of course, our physician assistant group has their own group that you can also go to get a lot of information and resources. These are my go-to books. The pocket guide, when I came on board, the residents said, get the pocket guide, you have to have it, it has everything in it. Well, then I went to a conference, a nurse practitioner conference with SUNA, and of course that year they had developed their first edition of the core curriculum for nursing, urologic nursing, and it is actually a very good resource. It's a little bit more down level, but it is still a great resource. So both of these I highly recommend for anyone. So I looked at a study out there that showed that 74% of urologists work with at least one or more APPs, and that's according to the 2020 AUA census. The roles that they play is growing. There's increased access with care, having APPs on board. Some assist in the OR, some perform surgical procedures. It's kind of an open book for whatever you want to do. And 27% of urologists plan to retire in the next 5 years. And anyone who's involved in academia knows that they're trying to get as many urologists out there as possible. And we keep talking about a shortage. So of course, they're going to need more advanced practice providers to help see those patients. I found a lot of mutual respect and teamwork working with these, the physicians and residents, and I really enjoy that. And you can get good, proper training with your own resources and when working with your team. These are some of the amazing resources that the AUA has. This will be available later on, but they have the AUA University. That's their go-to resource. They have AUA guidelines, which is what all urologists use for practice, that are established by panels of experts. We have the Urology Practice Journal that comes out periodically with lots of features in it. The AUA program at the AUA is a subset. I will be presenting there, and we have a 2 days full agenda for the APPs. And we also had a previous seminar in March. And that was a great seminar I went to last year. And then there are a ton of downloadable free patient education materials, and who can't use those, and why reinvent the wheel. So the pros and the pitfalls of being a urologic nurse. I learned so much so fast, I couldn't even believe it was possible. I became independent very quickly. Of course, there's this fine line between when am I independent and when do I still need to hang on? But I now manage my own clinic. I really don't have any fears doing that. I know I have resources available to me. I do a lot of procedures. I do PTNS, I do urodynamics, and there are others that you can do. I generate income. And honestly, it's a challenging and exciting arena for me. I really enjoy it. Now, the cons. Practices are busy. There are a lot of moving parts, and it has been, you become a real true expert in multitasking. Being given too much work. There's a lot to do, and it can be really easy for you to pick up tasks that you potentially should not be doing, in my opinion. It's very easy for nurse practitioners, particularly, to pick up nursing responsibilities because we have a hard time transitioning from that one area to the other. Be careful not to take on too much. Too much is too much. So how to advance in the urology? Well, it's easy. You start local. I get involved in our local APRN, it's the Advanced Practice Nurses. I started my own QI projects because I found issues that needed to be resolved. I developed tools for my group to help them. I started getting involved in local education programs. I'm a preceptor to nurse practitioners. I teach at the College of Nursing, and I help med students. I have published in my previous job. I have a case study I'm working on. I have mentors who I rely on. I keep an updated and thorough CV, and this will be going on to my CV tomorrow. My CV is pretty advanced, and it's important to keep that up and active, and people will see that information, and you can continue to improve and improve. Join a national organization. That's what I did here. My boss actually said, hey, you should be involved in the AUA. I joined, signed up for a committee, and here I am. And then you earn respect from your peers, and you create your own dynasty, your destiny, or your dynasty. I've actually earned a lot of respect, and I'm on several hospital committees, and I just really enjoy it. It can be too much, but you have to put in the effort, and if it's important to you, you'll do it. So what if I leave urology? What if one day I say I'm done, which I'm excited to say in 2 years I get to retire? And it's exciting and it's scary and it's sad, but I have a great primary care knowledge because in urology, you learn about erectile dysfunction, BPH, UTIs, testosterone, incontinence, kidney stones, PSA testing. A lot of what we do goes into primary care that can be used for other areas. You'll know how to manage a busy clinic, that's for sure. You'll be so well-rounded in your way that you manage yourself that going to another clinic, it'll just be a matter of picking up the pieces and knowing how to move on from there. You become very efficient, and you know how to prepare yourself. And you'll know what to do better in your next endeavor. So with that being said, I think I made a great decision when I moved to urology. It was kind of a fluke how it happened. I'm glad it happened. I'm happy to be there. Some days I'm stressed, but I say, go for it. So that's it for me. And now I'm going to move on to Dan. Take it away, Dan.
Hello, folks. I'm going to address working in an academic setting. And interestingly enough, prior to my, well, let's see. Sorry about that. My fingers are quicker than my mind. So, sorry about that. Okay, here we go. So prior to me getting into PA school, I worked at the Stanford Urology department and met many wonderful folks and really learned that urology was amazing. It wasn't just, you know, kidneys and bladders and everything else. It was medicine. And it was wonderful. I've kind of got the PA definition down because I worked in many areas. I worked in urgent care. I worked in pediatric and adult hematology. I worked in drug and alcohol rehabilitation and also student health. I don't know what happened. So here we go. Sorry about that, guys. My first job was at Duke University Medical Center in urology. And I worked for the chief of urology and primarily in his clinic. So I saw a lot of his patients who were referred to him and followed up on his patients who he treated and or had surgery. In a academic setting, you're going to work with other attending doctors. And one of them asked me to help him in surgery. And as a result, I got to do a lot of things. So be open to that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. As I was at the university, one of the residents was a chief resident and asked me to go into his private urology practice, which I did, and did that for 6 years or so. Again, in between that and working at the University of South Alabama, I did all of the other things that are seen in this first little button there. Oh, good Lord. Here we go. What's unique about this setting? The uniqueness is that there is opportunities to expand your knowledge base in specialty information and techniques at a tertiary surgical medical center, which really has a lot of cutting edge areas. And there's always a research participation available, and you learn a lot about knowledge, medical knowledge, urological knowledge, and techniques. You are also afforded an opportunity to teach, not just the residents that are coming around or interns, but also other areas within the university. So it's really a wonderful opportunity. You can also earn advanced degrees, which I did when I was at the University of South Alabama. And just to know, while you're working there, they'll help you with your tuition, which is wonderful. Now, I don't know if all academic settings do that, but where I was at the time, they did. What are the challenges of this setting? Well, as I mentioned before, working with many attending physicians who have different approaches to urology, medicine, and surgical techniques. You know, you might think that you'd be off put by it, but you're really not. So be open and flexible. Don't be stuck in a, hey, this is how I learned it, and I can't change mentality. Pros of this setting. Opportunities to learn is probably one of the biggest. Other things are opportunities that you can afford to yourself. While I was at Duke, I learned microsurgical techniques in their microsurgery laboratories. One of the attending physicians wanted me to do his initial cystoscopies and retrograde pyelograms. And so that's what I did, and that's where I learned it. So there's always opportunities to learn. The other thing is I got to work with some amazing people. One of them is a was a pediatric urologist, Lowell King, and I got to assist in surgery with him, doing a reimplant testicle, and it was fantastic. Great opportunity. Best practices in demonstrating your value. Once again, be open to learning and stepping out of your comfort zone. And I think Lynn kind of said the same thing. My guess is you're going to hear that from a number of participants here. And if given the opportunity to learn, grow, take it. Don't just hang back. Best practices in defining your role. One of the things, and Lynn showed this, is use the AUA definitions and best practices for APPs in urology. They're out there. You don't have to initially invent the wheel. The other thing is meet with the physicians who are willing to help you and explain your goals, what you want, how you want to learn, and where perhaps you want to go. Be open to a wide range of practice possibilities with the urologic team at the university, whether it's clinic, urodynamics, whatever it might be, just be open, and that's so important. Best practices in advancing your career. Again, be open to change and knowledge opportunities, and step out of your comfort zone when possible. And that's about where I am right now. So I'd like to turn it on to Tricia.
Okay, so hello, everybody. Again, it's an honor to be with you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my practice and how I stumbled into urology. I graduated from St. Olaf College in Minnesota and worked in med-surg, urology, oncology, hospice at the hospital for 5 years, and then moved to working and running a general surgeon's practice. After that, I decided I want to do more. So I became a nurse practitioner, went to the College of St. Catherine's in St. Paul, Minnesota, graduated, had my own practice in family medicine for 5 years. Family medicine is pretty hardcore, a lot of long hours, as some of you may know. So I decided I wanted to do a change. And one of my urologist that I used to work with at the hospital said, hey, Tricia, why don't you come over and work in urology? And another one of my colleagues in family medicine also did the subspecialty over there and kind of pulled me in that direction. So, okay, there we go. I just want to tell you a little bit about, my clinic. So there's 2 clinics in that have merged together, big systems that have merged together in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Park Nicollet and Health Partners. And we have over 3,000 clinicians, and you can kind of see how many physicians and how many APPs. I work in Park Nicollet Clinic, and we have 41 different clinic locations. There's 771 physicians, and you can see over like 300 APPs. So as far as urology, we have 4 locations that we work with and 8 urologists and EPPs currently. I work in kind of a subspecialty of urology, sexual medicine and male infertility. We're actually our own clinic, and we actually have 2 different locations. One thing that I think is really unique is that our clinic was started by a nurse practitioner who talked a psychologist into starting it 36 years ago. So we have been cutting edge for a while. I just want you to be aware of that as far as APPs. Again, we're a subspecialty of urology. And what I do in this practice is I see male and female sexual medicine and also to male infertility, which we know is a definite growing need as in our society as time goes on. We have 1 urologist who's also an andrologist, 1 physician, and 3 APPs right now. The other thing that's really cool is that we have 2 therapists, psychologists, and actually 1 therapist, and they're actually in-house. So we work and collaborate together, which is, I think, really exciting. There isn't a lot of, there's starting to be more and more, but we were one of the first in the United States as far as sexual medicine and therapy right in-house, which is, I think, a great benefit to us, but especially for our patients. So as far as challenges of this setting, I would say the biggest challenge for me is CME money. As far as sexual medicine, there usually isn't a conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So often we need to be going nationally or internationally for our education. And the amount of money that's given isn't always the greatest. Another thing that I hear some APPs talking about is salary versus RVUs. The other APPs in my department are actually salary. I've been in RVU production for, 20 years. So I'm kind of used to it and I kind of want to keep it that way. But I can see sometimes that can be tricky, especially if you are in the OR and also working seeing client patients. I know I have one of the APPs that's kind of asking about that. Should I be being paid more? She's looking into that. So I know that that can be sometimes challenging for some individuals. And then our clinic is really large. So you can kind of get lost in the shuffle, and sometimes it can be maybe a little difficult to define yourself. The pros of the settings, I feel like there's a lot of pros. I'm independent. I see consults, diagnose, and treat patients. I am in a smaller clinic, so we really work as a team. We really have to create that trust. We go see each other's patients, go back and forth, and we all kind of treat the same so that we know we can trust each other with care of our patients. We're constantly consulting amongst each other and between the urologists, the APPs, the therapists. So again, I think that's super exciting and fun. And also too, I consult and I refer with a lot of the subspecialties and have creative relationships with endocrinology, primary care, oncology, hematology, you name it, urology, of course. So that is fun to create those relationships. In our clinic, we also can set patients up and actually just refer them straight on to surgery. And I think that creates a lot of trust in the APPs and the physician when we are able to do that. We train residents and incoming providers, so that's always fun because you have to keep up on your skills and why you're doing what you're doing. We have a journal club once a month. So each clinician will take a month and discuss a certain topic. We actually had it today and had some good discussion. And we also have monthly clinician meetings where everybody's there, including the psychologist or therapist. I know that that's not always the case. I know that sometimes it's just the urologist, but I really feel that we as APPs have something to say and a voice, and we do a lot. Other pros, that I feel really supported and encouraged as a clinician in my department to grow. They're always like, go for it, do it. So that's always fun to have. I'm expected to gain knowledge and be up to date on the latest treatments, and I like that. I love performing procedures. I like the RVU productions. That's personally me. I appreciate that. And some people might like salary, I don't know. And I'm seen as a colleague and a team member. Another thing I want to say is that our department actually wrote an article on premature ejaculation. It was actually published, I think, 2019 in the Sexual Medicine Clinician Reviews. Again, teamwork, working together. And then research is encouraged, although it's kind of hard in our system because it's so big. We have to go through 2 IRBs, so that we haven't been able to do a lot, but we want to do more. And there's just a lot of opportunities. Okay, so best practices in demonstrating your value. Excellent work in patient care. There are patient surveys that our system hands out, and our patients actually rate us, and they send us our results every month, which is good majority of the time. This is also posted online so patients can see. So I think it's really important for us as clinicians to kind of make sure that we're doing the best patient care possible and creating that rapport. Staying educated on the latest treatments, going to the latest conferences. I know my patients are always know that I'm going to a conference. They ask me if I'm going to conferences and what is the latest and greatest that you've learned. I think it's important to always ask questions. If you don't know, ask questions. Your clinicians around you will be able to help you out. I think it's important to delve into that, to lean into them, and then they know that you're learning too. It's always important to learn, be flexible. Even in my many years of experience, I am growing and I want to be growing. Don't get stuck in your ways. There may be a new way of doing something or looking at something. Procedures, doing new procedures is really important too, learning those new skills. I do Mona Lisa touch, biopsies, testopel. I use a vulvoscope, which we can charge for that too. And then taking opportunities, leadership opportunities, both internally and externally outside the clinic as well. So best practices in defining your role, I think it's important to be involved in some medical societies. I really recommend the AWA, both locally, but also nationally. I'm involved in a couple other societies. You see those listed as well. I think this is a great time to connect with your colleagues, both locally, but also nationally and even internationally, to create those different connections, but also to learn different ways people are doing things in urology, to get a different perspective. Also too, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. I know that when I first started in sexual medicine, I didn't have a lot of information about how to treat female sexual medicine. I kept on speaking up and saying I need to be trained. They actually flew me out to Philadelphia. I followed Susan Kellogg Spaeth for a week and did a small little fellowship with her. Also, they were going to fly my colleague out to learn how to do the Mona Lisa touch in Ohio by another urologist, and they didn't include me. And I said, hey, I see patients, females too. I want to go as well. And so I was taught, they flew me out there. I was trained alongside the physician. And then the company actually came into our clinic and taught us how to do it as well. Also to become invaluable. I think that's really, really important to do that. And find a mentor. I think it's important to find someone maybe that's a little bit ahead of you on the road that you want to go down, so that you're able to pull wisdom from them. I think that's important. As far as advancing your career, seize the opportunities. Don't be afraid to try that. I think you've heard that from my other 2 colleagues. Take that leap. It's important to do that. Again, become a lifelong learner. That's very important. And then take those opportunities in and outside of your clinic. Speak, present, publish articles, serve, research, and take leadership opportunities. Find that mentor, meet with them on a regular basis. I know that that's been important to me but also be a mentor. Be a mentor for someone that's coming on that may need a little help or guidance. And also too, I think it's important for life balance. I know that the AUA census, the last one, talked about APPs, a lot of them are females, and that the burnout rate is pretty high. So I think it's really important as us, as all APPs, men and women, to make sure that we have good life balance. So that's my 2 cents. I'm going to pass on to Ken Mitchell.
All right. If everybody can hear me okay. So again, thanks, Tricia. That was great. And to all the other panelists. I'm going to talk to you about clinical leadership in a private practice. And my journey is very interesting in that I feel it's been both just right time, right place, right time, more than anything else. So I graduated from my PA program in 1995, so that was 26 years ago, and I started my work as a multi-specialty practice physician assistant, primarily working in family practice and internal medicine. And we also had we had surgery, we had urology then, and again, I didn't really mess around too much with the surgery side of it. I actually had a background in surgical research, and so I was looking just to branch out a little bit and do something a little bit different. But then I began to have an interest in men's health about 1998, and most people know what happened in 1998, and in particular on March 27th. At least for me, it changed everything. That was when that little blue pill was brought to market, and from there, it was interesting that the company that launched the pill, Pfizer, really placed an emphasis on the rebranding of the disease. And what we used to call impotence later became known as erectile dysfunction. And that for me set forth a whole nother career path that I wasn't anticipating. Many of us often say that we find a career that we enjoy doing, and sometimes a career finds us. And so what was interesting, and I learned then, was that the discipline of men's health, which I again felt that I did a lot of that work before it became, if you will, a thing, began to cross over into primary care after exclusively residing in urology, and then the pendulum swung again. So as I continued to find my interest there, I started again showing up at meetings like Tricia mentioned, and I began presenting at meetings. I'd had some background in doing that, and so I started out locally, and that expanded into national opportunities, and then even international opportunities came my way. I began publishing articles in peer-reviewed journals and being a reviewer of articles, including AUA's urology practice. I do that as well. And I contributed also as a reviewer of urology practice in the Journal of Sexual Medicine. Again, kind of staying visible more than anything else, and not really knowing where things would lead me. Contributed to book chapters, and then again, continued doing public presentations on the topic of men's health, and really felt like it was important, even as a physician assistant, to have a voice for men who, just for what I could see in my career, didn't have much of a voice dealing with their healthcare issues. And so, as I mentioned, my journey kind of marched in step with the things that were happening for me clinically. The leadership opportunities came along with that. So, as I mentioned, in 1998, we saw the launch of Viagra, but it took about 7 years before I realized that I needed to make the jump from primary care to urology. And so in 2005, I joined Metro Urology, which is now Minnesota Urology in the Twin Cities. And from there, I had about a 6-year, what I call a fast track of being exposed to urologists, and especially those urologists that I had been reading their work who were giants in the sexual medicine world. And they were kind enough to embrace me. And I began training myself, getting some additional training, but also starting to train APPs. And as Tricia pointed out, as I became more recognized for the work that I was doing, I started training MDs and DOs in the men's health space. Right along that time, marching in parallel with that, I became the president of the Urological Association of PAs and served in that role for 2 years. And then After I was done doing that, we had really good success at UAPA. There was a great team effort, but as they often say, you know, sometimes you get more credit than you deserve, but we had a tremendous group of people, which I was the leader of, and that led to other leadership opportunities. And so I became the committee chair of the APNPA Affairs, was what it was called, in SMSNA. And at the same time that year, I became membership committee vice chair in 2013. So following that, then I then served on the ASMH board member at large, which I remain on that at this point right now. Sorry for the animal noise. 2016 brought me to, again, the next steps to, and that is ascending to the membership committee chair at AUA for the APPs. And then again, having the opportunity to write on what I thought was a pivotal paper in how APPs would be recognized in the field of urology, acknowledging the workforce shortage, and then having more awareness created around the solution that APPs could provide to this workforce shortage. That leads us to, of course, what we all suffered, which was the global pandemic. And that gave me an opportunity really to focus on some things that I really wanted to do, and that was outreach to my APP colleagues, as well as the community and the world at large about men's health. So during that time of reflection during the pandemic of 2020, I said something good had to come out of it. And so I founded the Gynecology Men's Health Association, which is a nonprofit that I started there. And again, that's focused on APP training, creating awareness to the public at large about men's health, which leads me to my current position. After being somewhat dormant, if you will, in practice, and recognizing that, particularly during the pandemic, and the disproportionate number of men that were dying, it was time for me to get back in practice and to get back into a large urology practice. But I did it with the hope that if I was given the opportunity with all the leadership experience and the clinical experience that I was gaining over what seemed like a short period of time, could be put to good use. And so I became the AU's, or Arkansas Urology's, clinical coordinator on men's health. And so that job is a very big job. And so I'm responsible for a lot of things, and where that will lead, we will see. And so what happened then is these little leadership opportunities really provided credibility. And that's what I thought was really important. Everybody on this panel I've gotten to know over the years, and felt that was important to really champion a lot of the work that those that came before me, and also open the doors for others, and also expand the awareness regarding the capacity of an APP to lead a clinical service area, regardless of where you resided, whether it was in academics or whether it was in private practice. And so we created these opportunities to share, collaborate, and develop really what I like to believe a reimagined practice strategy. And that is that the APPs are well-trained, and if not, in many cases, better suited to actually perform in the leadership roles within a clinical discipline. And really, all in all, what that did, it validated the APP's ability to serve in a leadership role. So my present day opportunity, as I mentioned, I joined Arkansas Urology 23 years after Viagra's launch. Who knew that it would lead to something more? And I became that clinical men's health coordinator. What I do is a very big job, as I mentioned. Arkansas Urology spans the entire state of Arkansas. I provide oversight to 5 primary and 10 satellite locations, particularly in the men's health service line for the practice. My job is to develop the clinical pathways that we use, provide training to all the APP colleagues that are working in the men's health service line, and also develop the appropriate policies and processes to ensure that we deliver good quality care to our patients, and that my colleagues who are delivering this care feel competent and confident in their ability to deliver this. More importantly, we all serve in the role of supporting our physicians. And the fact of the matter is, the men's health space, or any male sexual dysfunction in most practices, is really going to be taken on by only certain individuals who have the love for it. As a result, we were able to pull a lot of that workload off of the physicians in the practice who really weren't interested in doing this type of work. It increased access to care in the men's health space. We're already seeing fairly significant growth in that area for Arkansas Urology, but more importantly, having an impact on the health of men in the state of Arkansas. So my advice to those who are called to lead, again, sometimes opportunities present themselves, but really our role, the genesis of all of our roles as APP was that we were there to be a solution for needs that were identified for patients and practices around the country. We have a real interesting space that we sit in because we really are that bridge between the patients and the physicians. And so we have a perspective that allows us to develop solutions to addressing these needs for both patients and the practice. As mentioned before, I highly encourage participating in the professional organizations that support APP practice. The work that any of you do going in those areas is a reflection on APPs everywhere, and it does create awareness and helps those that supervisors that we work side by side, those physicians, to recognize our abilities. And more importantly, is courageously explore those opportunities within your practice. You know, have the courage to speak out. When you see something, if you will, say something and do the best that you can to advocate for the patients that you serve in your community. And certainly, all in all, make professional growth a priority. Our professions, if you will, are fairly new to the world and the grand scheme of things. And so we have this real unique opportunity to really change the way we're viewed, to increase the way that we're viewed, and delve into areas where we can, again, expand the practice of what we do and serve the patients and the physicians and colleagues that we work with. My last thought is simply this. I was just given this quote the other day, and I think it's really important, especially for the new grads coming out, is that you come in and you're really concerned about your abilities and what you're able to do. And you might even feel like you need to stay in your place. But I was just given this, I'm just this last Thursday, and it was from Marianne Williamson, saying that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure, and it is our light and not our darkness that most frightens us. So be courageous, stand up for the patients that we've been given the opportunity to serve. And from there, again, you can lead others in growing and ensuring that our mission will be carried out. So thank you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists who participated tonight. We'll start off our Q&A session with our first question. If all panelists could come back on camera, I will direct this first question to Tricia and then anybody else who would like to chime in. We have a question that asks, we are in the process of getting surveys for NPs separate from the MD survey. Do you see patients on your own schedule, or do you do both?
I have my own schedule. That's how and I don't think there's a different survey. That's interesting that they have one for APPs and MDs is what I think I'm hearing you say. We have one for all the providers, so it's not separate. It's kind of interesting that I think that's what I'm hearing this individual ask.
Great, thank you. Next question. Any tips on balancing daily work schedule, especially dealing with email tasks and seeing patients? Lynn, I'll direct this one to you.
Yeah, so I think you just have to have a good sense of your balance. You have to describe those needs to your coworkers and to your physician colleagues. Many of our new graduates or younger people have families at home, and it's really important. I'm at home now with grown children who are gone, so it's easier for me to stay and take on more responsibility. But it really has to be a good discussion with your group about where you need to draw the line to give you a good balance at both places, or else you won't be a happy individual.
Great, thank you. Ken or Dan, and this might be something for all the panelists, what was the most powerful thing you did to become invaluable?
Boy, I'll be honest with you, just taking on the service line that I did. You know, I often joke that, you know, taking care of male sex is fun. Actually, I take that back. Sexual dysfunction, period. is something that there aren't a lot of people that do that kind of work or that dedicated to it, for sure. And so doing that one thing that nobody else wants to do is really important, of course. And so do that and get good at it, you become pretty invaluable. And then honestly, when other people are interested in that type of work, they'll do the same and they'll want to follow along. So I think you become invaluable, not just where you are, but to the world at large who are interested in doing the same thing.
And I'll have to agree with Ken. He brought up a lot of good points. In terms of becoming invaluable, I really think that you need to be open to new experiences. You need to be able to say, okay, this is something out maybe of my comfort zone, but I'm willing to take the step to go ahead and do it. Many of my colleagues here have said the same thing. So I really think that's kind of the crux of what it is, what it is to move on.
Great, thank you. Tricia, yes.
Okay, so yeah, I would say, I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's several things. Like every time I do something that's out of my comfort zone, I'm like, wow. I think you kind of have to keep on, I don't know, pushing yourself to grow and not just say, okay, I'm done. Like Ken's jumping into this new adventure, and he's always jumping into a new adventure. It's not just a one and done. He keeps on going. So I think doing those new opportunities when you can do it. And every time I do it, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this. But here we go. Let's do it.
And I'm going to just chime in real quickly. I make myself known. Now that can be really good or that can be really bad. But the bottom line is people know I respond to emails. I send letters back. I'm involved in groups. I see physicians in the hallway. They know my name. They know who they are, know who I am. And everyone knows if you say Lynn Urology, they know who I am. And they know that they're going to get service. They're going to get this, they're going to get that. I mean, the list is endless, but it's just another strategy for you.
Great, thank you. Any advice for a new graduate working in a private practice group as the first PA that they've hired? How can I build up my own practice and clinic?
I suppose I could jump on that one. I'm in private practice. That's an interesting thing. I'm going to go back to what I said in my slide about identifying a need. I think what is clear to me in a practice, in particular, a private practice, there's a lot of scrambling. Everybody's busy. As everybody's pointed out, the workforce is shrinking. And so you'll find that there are major leaks or areas that are just not being addressed. And that gives you a great opportunity to do that. I suppose that makes you invaluable at some point. I'm not saying you got to go into male sexual dysfunction, but for sure, see those needs and jump on it. I've often laughed. I told people, I said, a good APP is like duct tape. They'll fit just about anywhere and fix up any kind of leak and patch it up, and eventually, they'll seal it up and then move on to the next crack. So it's a good thing. So.
Fantastic.
Also go ahead.
No, please.
I just think also just continuing to learn, because I'm sure you're on that incline of learning. It's a big one. So keep learning as much as you can, ask questions, find a mentor, maybe some other PA locally near you that you can connect with, maybe have coffee with, or just have a quick phone call just to touch base maybe and give you some encouragement, because you're kind of paving the way in that practice, which is awesome. We're proud of you. So that's kind of what I would recommend.
I would say also use your physician. He's the one that hired you. He's the one that wanted you. So listen to them. What do they want? How do they want to use you? And what can you offer? That is so important. And you've been trained, all of us have been trained to do what we need to do, be it in a specialty, but more importantly, be it in medicine, surgery. So that's probably the most important thing I would say, or one of them.
Fantastic. And it looks like we've got time for one more question. For those of you who transitioned from primary care or another specialty to urology, how long did it take for you to feel 100% confident and comfortable working in urology?
This is Lynn. I really think it took me 2 to 3 years. I mean, I came from a very unusual practice setting, so I really didn't have a lot of exposure to a clinical environment. I did more procedures and research, but I mean, I thought I was confident until I wasn't. And then there's that magic time when you just feel like I can do it. I get it.
I was going to say, I'm kind of like Lynn. I had a weird journey. I was doing surgical research. I was around every surgical discipline for a long time before I was a PA. So for me, I transitioned from doing clinical research and doing a lot of that stuff or being around it. So my transition was, I'd say about 2 years as well. You know, like I was technically sound, but I had no clue about disease states or anything like that. So it took about that long before I understood, you know, why I needed to, you know, order an imaging or why I needed to, you know, place a catheter new and when was it safe to do this or that. I mean, it takes about that long and then you feel comfortable. But once you do, you know, the word gets out. So, you know, at that point, everybody's after you.
I'd say probably two years as well, although again, I'm still learning, especially with female sexual medicine. There's new things coming out all the time. Male, some things are coming out, but not as much as I think female medicine lately. But yeah, always learning. But you do kind of get to that comfort level where you're like, okay, I can navigate through each visit, and it's so fun and so rewarding to help your patients when you get that comfort level.
Now I have to agree. I kind of come from the opposite end of it. I was in urology and surgery for a long time, and then went, my God, to urgent care, and it took me easily 2 years, like all of my colleagues are saying, to learn A, medicines, B, oh, what do I do with this? C, who do I refer to? So, you know, I would say be patient with yourself. And again, as many of my colleagues have said, learn as much as you can, be open, and enjoy.
Great, thank you. I think that's a great note to end the Q&A session on. Apologies, we were not able to get to all the questions, and perhaps our webinar coordinator can put my email in the chat if there are additional questions that we can ask the panelists. My email is just slocklin@auanet.org. So I invite any questions that weren't answered tonight to be emailed, and we can see if we can't answer those for you. Before we conclude, I'd like to invite attendees on tonight's webinar to explore the programming devoted to enhancing the education of advanced practice providers and other allied healthcare professionals at the 2021 annual meeting in September. Programming is available in person in Las Vegas, via live stream, or on demand. Please visit AUA2021.org for more information. And finally, if you are not already a member of the AUA, I invite you to visit auanet.org to explore the education, resources, and more for APP members. Membership dues are currently prorated for 2021 and are $96 for APPs and allied members. I'd like to once again thank the panelists for their time, talent, and expertise in developing and facilitating tonight's event. A recording of this program will be made available and sent to all registrants. Thank you again for your attendance and participation, and I hope you have a great night.